God closes a door, it feels like the end. It feels like rejection, like a dream slipping through your fingers, like everything you worked for was in vain. But let me tell you something today. When God closes a door, He is not punishing you. He is preparing you. He is positioning you for something greater than you ever imagined. I know what it's like to stand before a closed door, knocking, pleading, waiting for it to open, only to realize that no amount of strength, no amount of willpower can force it open. And in that moment, doubt creeps in, fear rises, and you begin to wonder if you've been forgotten. But my friend, listen to me. God doesn't close a door to leave you in the hallway of uncertainty. He closes it to lead you to the right one. Think of Thomas Edison. They say he failed over 1,000 times before he finally got the light bulb to work. 1,000 closed doors, 1,000 moments of defeat. But he didn't give up. And because of that, the world is no longer in darkness. You may be facing rejection, heartbreak, failure, and you may be asking, why God? Why me? Why now? But what if God is saving you from something you can't yet see? What if He is redirecting you towards something far greater than your mind can comprehend? Joseph in the Bible was thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, falsely accused and imprisoned. At every stage it looked like the doors were closing on his destiny. But what Joseph didn't know was that God was setting him up for a position he couldn't have reached any other way. If he had never been betrayed, he wouldn't have made it to Pharaoh's palace. If he had never faced adversity, he wouldn't have saved an entire nation from famine. The door you wanted to walk through may have seemed right. It may have looked like everything you ever dreamed of. But if it was truly for you, no man could have closed it. And if God shut it, it means He has something better, something higher, something beyond what you could ever imagine. So don't be discouraged when you face rejection. Don't let disappointment define you. Keep walking, keep trusting, keep believing, because when one door closes, God has already prepared another one to open. And when He opens it, you will understand why all the others had to be shut. Don't stand there staring at the closed door, crying over what was lost. Lift your head, move forward, walk in faith. The best is yet to come. When a door slams shut, it feels personal. It feels like failure, like rejection, like everything you worked for just slipped through your hands. You question yourself, wondering what you did wrong, replaying the moments leading up to it, trying to figure out if you missed a step, if you could have done something different. But what if that closed door was never meant to be your entrance? What if God, in His infinite wisdom, was not taking something from you, but saving you from something you cannot yet see? There are moments in life when we beg for something, believing it is the very thing we need to be happy, to be successful, to feel whole. We pour our time, our energy, and our emotions into it, only to watch it crumble before our eyes. And in those moments, it's easy to feel abandoned. It's easy to believe that God has forgotten us. But the truth is, God never withholds good from His children. If He has shut the door, it's because He sees the road ahead. And He knows that what you wanted was not the best for you. Think of a child reaching for fire, believing it to be something wonderful, something magical, something they must have. A loving parent doesn't allow them to touch it, not because they are cruel or unfair, but because they know the danger the child cannot yet understand. In the same way, God sometimes denies us what we want most, not to hurt us, but to protect us. That relationship you fought so hard to keep, maybe it would have broken you. That job you desperately wanted, maybe it would have led you down a path of emptiness. That opportunity you lost, maybe it was never meant to be your path to greatness. History is filled with stories of people who faced rejection only to later realize it was the best thing that ever happened to them. Oprah Winfrey was told she wasn't fit for television. Walt Disney was fired for lacking imagination. Steve Jobs was removed from the very company he started. Each of them faced a door slammed in their face, and yet those very rejections set them on the path to something greater than they ever imagined. What seemed like failure was actually divine intervention, shaping them for something far beyond their limited vision. The same is true for you. What you see as rejection today may very well be God's hand guiding you towards something extraordinary. When a door closes, it doesn't just test your patience, it tests your character. It forces you to look beyond your immediate disappointment and see what lies beneath. In that moment, you have two choices: to let the failure define you or to allow it to refine you. Growth never happens in comfort. Strength is not built when everything goes right. Every great story of success is filled with moments of doubt, moments of failure, moments when someone had every reason to give up but chose not to. The difference between those who rise and those who remain stuck is how they respond when the door closes. Thomas Edison failed over 1,000 times before he finally created the light bulb. Most people would have stopped after 10, maybe 100, but 1,000? He once said, "I have not failed. I have just found 1,000 ways that won't work." That is the mindset of someone who understands that closed doors are not the end. They are simply a detour on the way to something greater. If he had let failure break him, the world would still be in darkness. How many times have you given up on something simply because it didn't work the first time? How many doors have you walked away from instead of knocking again or looking for another way in? Rejection is painful. Failure stings. But both serve a purpose. They teach us resilience. They force us to grow in ways we never would if everything came easy. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team. At that moment, he could have accepted defeat. He could have told himself that he wasn't good enough. Instead, he let that closed door fuel his determination. He trained harder. He pushed himself beyond his limits. That rejection was not the end of his story. It was the fire that shaped him into one of the greatest athletes of all time. When God closes a door, he isn't trying to break you. He's trying to build you. He is stretching you, strengthening you, preparing you for the open door that is waiting ahead. The road to success is never straight. It is filled with obstacles, detours, and unexpected turns. But every setback, every disappointment, every rejection is a lesson, a step towards something greater. It is in those moments of struggle that you grow into the person you were meant to be. So don't resist the process. Don't let failure define you. Let it refine you. Keep pushing, keep growing, and trust that what is meant for you will always find its way. We often plan our lives down to the smallest details, imagining how things should unfold, believing we know exactly what is best for us. But life rarely follows our carefully drawn blueprints. We chase opportunities, relationships, and dreams only to find that the doors we so desperately wanted to walk through remain locked. It can feel unfair. It can feel like defeat. But what if the reason for that closed door is that God has a bigger, better, and far more extraordinary plan than you ever imagined? Joseph, the son of Jacob, had dreams of greatness. He saw himself in a position of power, but he never could have foreseen the path that would take him there. His own brothers betrayed him, selling him into slavery. That was a door slammed shut. He worked diligently in Potiphar's house, only to be falsely accused and thrown into prison. Another door closed. Years passed, and it seemed as though his dreams had been buried. But what Joseph didn't see was that each painful moment, each setback, each closed door was leading him exactly where he was meant to be. If his brothers had never betrayed him, if he had never been sold, if he had never been imprisoned, he would have never stood before Pharaoh interpreting his dreams and becoming second in command over all of Egypt. What once looked like a series of losses was actually God's divine strategy to place him in the right position at the right time. How many times have you been devastated by something, only to look back years later and realize that if it had worked out the way you wanted, it would have led to disaster? Maybe the job you didn't get would have stolen years of your life in unhappiness. Maybe the person you thought you couldn't live without would have broken you beyond repair. Maybe the opportunity that passed you by was never truly meant for you. We see what's right in front of us, but God sees the entire picture. He knows the connections, the timing, the future, and every detail we can't comprehend. When a door closes, it doesn't mean your destiny is lost. It means God is rerouting you to something greater. He is not just in the business of answering prayers, He is in the business of exceeding them. What you think is a disappointment is often divine intervention. Trust Him even when you don't understand, because His plan is always bigger than yours. A closed door can feel like the ultimate heartbreak, the final word in a story you were so sure was meant to be yours. You knock, you push, you plead, but nothing budges. The silence can feel deafening, the rejection unbearable. But what if that door never belonged to you in the first place? What if it was never the right one? What if God in His infinite wisdom closed it not to harm you, but to lead you to something far greater? We spend so much of our lives fixated on what we think is best for us. We build our plans, set our expectations, and convince ourselves that certain opportunities, relationships, or paths are the only way forward. And when those doors close, it feels like we've lost everything. But what if that loss was actually a gain? What if what you were holding on to so tightly was actually keeping you from receiving something better? Imagine a child clinging to an old broken toy, unwilling to let go, crying because they don't realize that their parent has something brand new waiting for them. That's how we often behave when life doesn't go our way. We mourn the loss of what we thought we wanted, not realizing that God is preparing something beyond our imagination. We are so fixated on the closed door that we fail to see the one that is about to open. So many of the greatest success stories began with rejection, with failure, with closed doors. Walt Disney was told he lacked creativity. Oprah Winfrey was fired from her first television job. Steve Jobs was removed from Apple, the very company he founded. Each of them had a door slammed in their face. Each of them had a moment where they could have given up, where they could have let rejection define them. But what seemed like an ending was actually a redirection. The door they thought was meant for them had to close so that something greater could take its place. Because if this is Eden, the empire of imagination, Oprah became one of the most influential figures in media, and Steve Jobs was meant for them, had to close so that something greater could take its place. If a door has closed in your life, do not despair. What is truly meant for you can never be taken away. The closed door is not the end of your story. It is the turning point. Trust that something better is coming, because when one door closes, another is already waiting to be opened. Faith is easy when life goes according to plan, when the doors open effortlessly, when opportunities come at just the right moment, when everything aligns the way you hoped. Trusting God feels natural. But what happens when the door you prayed for stays shut? When the dream you worked so hard for slips away? When everything you thought was certain crumbles right before your eyes? It's in these moments that faith is truly tested, not in the open doors, but in the closed ones. We all have a vision of how life should unfold. We plan, we prepare, we dream. And when things don't go as expected, when rejection comes, when the answer is no, it's easy to question everything. Did I make a mistake? Did I not pray hard enough? Did God forget about me? But faith is not about understanding the plan. It's about trusting the one who created it. It's about believing that even when we don't see the way forward, God is still leading us exactly where we need to be. Noah was told to build an ark before a single drop of rain had ever fallen. Abraham was called to leave his home without knowing where he was going. Moses was asked to lead an entire nation through the wilderness with no clear path in sight. None of them had all the answers. None of them saw the full picture, but they moved forward in faith, trusting that God knew what he was doing. If they had waited for every detail to make sense, they never would have stepped into their purpose. When a door closes, our natural instinct is to fight it. We try to force our way through, believing that if we just push harder, if we just hold on longer, we can make it work. But what if the struggle is unnecessary? What if God is trying to save you from a path that would have led to heartbreak, to disappointment, to something far less than what he has in store? What if the delay is not a denial, but a divine detour leading to something greater? Faith means trusting even when the road is unclear. It means believing that even when the door stays shut, God is still working behind the scenes. It means knowing that just because you don't see the way now, doesn't mean there isn't a way being prepared for you. Keep trusting, keep believing, and know that God never closes a door without already preparing a better one. Disappointment has a way of shaking us to our core. It sneaks into our hearts, whispering doubts, making us question everything we once believed. When a door closes, when the opportunity disappears, when the relationship ends, when the dream crumbles, it's easy to believe that all is lost. But what if this very moment, the one that feels like the end, is actually the beginning of something greater? What if your greatest setback is about to become your most powerful testimony? Every great success story has a chapter filled with struggle, rejection, and failure. There is no victory without adversity. There is no strength without hardship. There is no testimony without a test. When we look at people who have achieved greatness, we often see only the highlight reel, the achievements, the breakthroughs, the moments of triumph. But behind every success is a season of difficulty. A time when they faced a closed door and had to decide whether to give up or push forward. J.K. Rowling, the author of Harry Potter, was rejected by 12 publishers before someone finally took a chance on her. She was a struggling single mother on the verge of giving up, believing that maybe her dream was never meant to be. But she kept going. She refused to let rejection define her. Today, her books have inspired millions, and she is one of the most successful authors in history. What if she had given up after the first rejection? What if she had let the closed door convince her that she wasn't good enough? Your story is not over. The disappointment you feel right now is only one chapter. What seems like a failure today will one day be the proof that you are being prepared for something greater. The people who succeed in life are not the ones who never face rejection, but the ones who refuse to be defined by it. They are the ones who see a closed door, not as the end, but as a challenge to keep moving, to keep growing, to keep believing. If you are facing a setback, know this: it is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of a testimony that will one day inspire others. The pain you feel today will one day be the reason someone else refuses to give up. Keep walking, keep believing, and trust that this closed door is leading you to something far greater than you could ever imagine. When a door closes, the easiest thing to do is stop. To stand there, staring at what could have been, replaying every moment, wondering why things didn't work out. The temptation is to dwell on what was lost, to let disappointment settle into your heart, to believe that maybe it was never meant to be. But closed doors are not meant to paralyze you. They are meant to push you forward. The greatest mistake you can make is to stop moving when life tells you no. Imagine if every successful person had given up after their first failure. If Thomas Edison had quit after his first failed attempt, we would still be in darkness. If Michael Jordan had accepted being cut from his high school basketball team as proof that he wasn't good enough, the world would have never seen his greatness. If Oprah had let being fired from her first television job define her, she never would have become a global icon. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't is not the absence of failure, it's the refusal to let failure have the final say. You may not understand why the door closed, you may not see the bigger picture yet, but faith is about moving forward even when you don't have all the answers. The door that God will open for you will be greater than the one you are leaving behind. What is ahead is far more important than what is behind. Keep walking, keep believing, keep trusting, because the only way to miss what God has for you is to give up too soon. Your breakthrough is on the other side of perseverance. Don't stop now. The best is yet to come. Life is a journey filled with unexpected twists, closed doors, and moments that test our faith. When God closes a door, it is never to harm you, but to guide you towards something greater. Every rejection, every setback, every disappointment is a part of a bigger plan, one that you may not fully understand now, but will one day look back on with gratitude. Think of every great success story, every person who overcame adversity, every moment in history when a failure turned into a triumph. The common thread is perseverance. It is faith in the unseen, trust in the unknown, and the courage to keep going when the path ahead is unclear. Closed doors are not dead ends. They are divine detours leading you exactly where you need to be. Do not let a moment of disappointment define your entire journey. Do not allow temporary setbacks to convince you that your destiny has been denied. What is meant for you will always be yours, and no closed door can take that away. Keep walking, keep believing, keep trusting, because when God closes one door, He has already prepared a better one. Your greatest breakthroughs, your biggest blessings, and your most extraordinary moments are still ahead. The best is yet to come.